Due to popular demand, I am doing another Rescue 911. I'm going to attempt to save a page, and I've called this one Don't Give Up. You're going to see exactly why. So I am working in this thrift store repurposed journal. I'll link the video where I show how I did that. I had some leftover paint, so I grabbed this journal and opened it up to this page. This was a napkin. There was a little paint, a little bit of stamping on there, but it got to the point where I liked it, but didn't know what to do. So today my point or my plan was to just use up some of the Prussian blue from a previous page. I looked up and I found this self-made stencil that I had just used with a circle punch. I grabbed my makeup sponge and I'm just going to put the circles on there. I thought the blue would go good. It's going to add some interest to this page and then we'll see where it goes. So my plan was just to do that as part of the cleaning up at the end of another art journal page. I'm liking the dots here, but they're kind of in my face. They're really forward, but I'm thinking, okay, I can do something with that. Maybe. Let's see. But I didn't stop. I saw some of that burnt sienna in the background, and I liked how it looked. So I grabbed this honeycomb stamp, and I'm putting the paint on with a makeup sponge and stamping, and I'm really liking what's happening here. I like the way the colors are playing with each other, and I'm going to call this one a win. You know where I'm going with this. There will be some losses coming up. Now, when you use a stamp with acrylic paint, you want to take time to spray it with your Murphy's oil soap and clean it. Now I wanted to add more white space and I wanted to knock back some of those bold blue circles. They were just too much forward. So I grabbed this, I think it's Garden Gate stencil, and I'm stenciling with some white gesso. And this is doing exactly what I thought I wanted, adding white space and pushing back the blue circles. But I'm kind of underwhelmed with that. I'm thinking that this really muddied the waters, complicated things instead of simplifying, made my background, yeah, I'm back to, okay, now what can I do? And that's the truth of it. You're going to go back and forth. Not every decision you make is going to be the right one or give you the effect that you think it's going to. So that sat, oh, no, not yet. I thought maybe if I knock back or brighten some of the yellow. Now I knew that was kind of a Naples yellow from the napkin. So I grabbed my Naples yellow and I'm putting a coat of it on there. It's a little more opaque. It's knocking back some of the blue circles a little bit more, neutralizing things. And I'm thinking, okay, that's better, maybe. So I'm purposefully knocking back some of those blue circles, and I'm liking the blue circles better here. That I'm going to call a win because I didn't want them so in your face. So it was at this point that I had to stop. I didn't know where I was going. The next day, I decide, I have this owl sitting in my stash. He's off to the left. You can see him. And I have this leafy vine stencil. What if I stencil leaves over it and give a home for this owl? So I grabbed 3 shades of green and I start stenciling, and my plan is to go all over it. I'm kind of peeking underneath. Then, yeah, no. So I grab a baby wipe and some water and I take that back down. That is a definite no. It's not giving me anything what I want. And I can wipe it back because everything on here is acrylic paint and it's permanent. So now what to do? The yellow was a little dull, so I grabbed cadmium yellow, which is a brighter yellow, and I'm just rubbing it over top of the yellow and getting rid of some of that white space that was my first wrong move when I was trying to rescue this page. And it's brightening it up. And while I'm not used to using so much yellow on a page, I do think that it was an improvement over the more muted Naples yellow, which is quite often my favorite yellow to use. So now I'm bright and bold, and I need more contrast. I have this toilet paper roll, so I squeezed it, grabbed cadmium red, and I am going to use the toilet paper roll as a stamp, a DIY mark maker. And I'm going to put these bright red patterns on the background. Either it's going to be wonderful or it's going to be another misstep. Fortunately, and I hope you agree, adding the red here, it pushes back everything behind it, adds this bright pop of color because it was getting so dark and I wasn't happy with that. And it kind of sort of looks like leaves or feathers. And I'm good with either of those because I want to put the owl. And I think if they look like leaves, that's fine. If it looks like feathers, that's fine. This is my interesting background. This is a repurposed book. I've got nothing to lose. This is just paint and paper. And I'm experimenting. I'm challenging myself to see if I can rescue it. And right now, I really like this background. I think this works, but I'm not done with the background, FYI. I keep adding to it. I think right now that I'm ready to put the focal point and wrap up the page. I want the owl off to the side, but I want to ground him a little bit because he's kind of in the middle of the page and there's not really a background of a tree there. So I grabbed my lid and I just drew a circle with my Inktense pencil. And now I'm just going to shade around that, activate the Inktense pencil with black. This is going to give my owl a perch, a home, weigh him down. This is something that I like doing in different ways with different circles or different shapes, and definitely here. Just kind of separates the focal image from the rest, especially when you have a really busy background. And I chose to put the owl on that side because of where those red toilet paper roll marks were. I glue it down with my fluid matte medium and I put a coat underneath and on top. Now, when I put him down, my plan was to leave him white. There's that little bit of white in the background, and I thought I could just leave him white. I often do that when there's a bright, colorful background. But I'm going to paint the branch. Give that a little because he needs a perch. So I grab some brown and black and I add a little bit more to that branch than what was in the cutout, the printable that was sitting in my stash for months upon months. And then once I added black here and I had some black on the brush, I decided I'm just going to beef up some of the black in the eyes and the top of his head. It was bad photocopy, so I just thought I wanted to make that a little bit bolder. And that led to, well, I need orange for the eye, and that kind of ties with the burnt sienna in the background. So that's good. And then I found myself deciding to grab my gray, mixing it with a little bit of black and getting different tones. I'm mixing it with black and white to get darker shades of gray. Initially, I was thinking an owl had to be brown, And I didn't want brown because I thought that would just wouldn't contrast enough with the reds and the orange that was in the background. Gray seemed to be a good solution. So again, I'm going to call this a win. Different shades and tones of gray. And my favorite thing to do with printables or stamped images is to paint them. Instead of using markers, I prefer to just use acrylic paint or my Inktense pencils or blocks. Now, there was all that detailing on that owl. And while you cannot see it on camera, the eyelashes, the hearts that were on the body of the owl, I can still see them. I'm not obliterating them completely because I plan on adding that back in later. So I paint it over, but it's not completely gone so that I can use my markers and put it back in later. So of course, in between everything, I am using my heat tool and I am drying it off. Then I decide I need to add some green to the background, kind of looking like leaves. And I grab my stencil brush. This is a small stencil brush from the Crafter's Workshop. And I'm just putting 3 dots together in different places on the page. This is adding that green, and what a lovely mark maker this stencil brush is. So I'm using the stencil brush not for what it's intended, but I'm liking the effect, and I'm learning that if I press harder and kind of twist, I get almost a perfect circle. And I love the size of this. So this is definitely something that I will do again. So the wins here, I am going to use the toilet paper roll to make that shape again. I love that. I love that honeycomb stamp. I haven't used it very much, but I need to. And doing this with the stencil brush to put some marks on my page is another win. So when you are experimenting and trying to save a page, that's the perfect time to try things, experiment, and learn things that you can then bring forward into your everyday practice. Now I'm shading around the outside edge with the black acrylic paint. Now this is tying in with the black that's on the owl. It's tying in with the black that's around the circle around the owl. It's just making everything cohesive. Now I have a lot of real estate on the right-hand side of this page, this two-page spread. My plan is to put a sentiment there. There's a lot of real estate there. But before I do that, I want to do more shading on, or some shading on the owl. And again, I'm using my angle brush. I've got acrylic paint. This is my shading technique that if you've watched me, you've seen me do a gazillion times. It just adds so much interest to it. Now here, I've got a little too much water, so I'm kind of using the heat tool and drying it as I shade. I don't really recommend that because it can dry a little too quick. I grab my Posca pen and I'm adding in the eyelashes now. Remember I said I could still see them? Outlining the eyes, just getting a little bit bolder there. And then I'm adding the hearts that were on the body of the owl. Like I said, I can still see the ones that were there on the original printable. was right about now that I thought, oh, I should have or could have done these hearts in red, or some of them in red, to tie in with the red that's in the background. Remember, I always want to have whatever's in the background, something in the focal image. And so I leave a space in the middle. I leave one of those hearts out, and I'm going to grab some of the red paint that's still on my palette and paint a red heart in the middle. It's a little detail, but it made me smile. Dot the eyes back in. Then I decided that I needed a little bit more black in the background. So I grabbed this is a script alphabet, and you really can't even tell that it's script or alphabet, but it's adding that a little bit of grunge, a little bit of black into the background. Made a bit of a mess. Baby wipe to the rescue. Just putting black acrylic paint on the stamp and then stamping it all over. So there were lots of layers added to this background. And the ideas came to me at different times. I kept coming back to the background. So, and you can do that. It's not done till you think it's done, till you're happy with it. I like the circle of the owl's eyes. It's kind of mirroring the circles of that those stenciled blue circles. And as usual, I overdid it with the stamping. Then I decided to put a sentiment on, and I was going to grab this one, if not now, then when. And then I had an idea. Since I have so much real estate there, I've got such a big space, I'm going to use some foam stamps that I have that are larger size that I don't often get a chance to use. But I'm going to use some of the words from here. Kind of reminded me of, like, the ransom notes you see on TV where people cut them out of magazines. So I'm going to have the phrase, if not you, then who? And that kind of ties in with the owl and use up the sentiment. So if you've got stamped sentiments or you've got digital sentiments that you've got printed out, you can use them in whatever way you want. You can, just steal words from different sentiments and build a new phrase. So the stamps, the larger stamps there, those are from Tim Holtz, and they are foam stamps. They have this shiny part on the one side that is supposed to stick to the blocks. You know where I'm going with the supposed to, right? Technical difficulties coming right up. So I'm positioning the sentiment here, and I'm just gluing that down with fluid matte medium. But I wanted to figure out the composition, where exactly I wanted the stamped words to go. Got my acrylic block. This one sticks on very nicely. And then I got black acrylic paint on the makeup sponge, and I'm putting a generous amount on there. So I want a bold black stamp of it. And when you press down, because it's foam, you can get that. Now I've got a lot of texture on the page because remember that started with a napkin that was glued down, but I'm able to get a good stamp. So breathe a sigh of relief. So I'm thinking I'm gonna do the O and the U, but the O is refusing to stay attached to the acrylic block. So after several attempts, I actually use a bit of glue stick on it to glue it onto so it'll stick to the adhesive, the acrylic block. And then I do this 3 O's with it, stamping with it. You can also put some masking tape, but this worked. I just washed off um, the glue afterwards. You got to do what you got to do to make it work. And then I proceeded to do all the other letters, which I do believe all functioned well. I didn't have any more technical difficulties with the stamped image. And I think that I reminded myself, okay, this is probably why I don't use these foam stamps so much, but I do like the effect of them. So it's worth it to give it a try and make it work. Grab my Posca pen and outlining just the 2 or the 3 little words that were in white, just to give them a little more weight on the page. Use the Posca pen to touch up. There's a couple areas that just didn't quite, because of the texture, get good coverage. I decide as I'm putting the Posca pen away, I see my white gel pen. I thought I'm going to put some dashes on around the circle around the owl. It starts off good and then it stops working. So I grab my white Posca pen and finish the job. Some pages are like that. Some happen so effortlessly, and some, like this one, seem to fight you every step of the way. 1 step forward, 2 steps back kind of thing. But don't give up. I do a sketchy white line around the border, which shows up really well with the shading that I have there. And then I decide to outline the black letters. Not sure that was the right choice. I think I liked it better just black. What do you think? Like I said, not every decision is a 100% win. Enjoy the process. Enjoy the thrill or the challenge. And take the wins where you can. And I decided those green stenciled marks that I put a dot, a white dot in the midst of all of them. Just add a little more white onto the page. And there is where this page started, where I didn't know. And did I save it? Well, let me know in the comment section what you think. It may not be my favorite page, but I definitely had some wins, some things that I'm going to bring forward into my art journaling practice. Yeah, I like the page. Until next time, go get creative.